We did dope card checks right before. Density, altitude, everything stayed pretty static throughout the day. Nothing really changed. This was the very beginning on the first 3 stages. At some points, the snow was sideways. The snow is actually really nice, especially at this range, because you can't see wind at this range because of all the treetops. So reading wind's tough, but the snow actually helped people kind of read wind better. So I put 9 miles an hour left to right at a 270-degree angle to myself in the prone on my applied ballistics, and that's what I was running with as my wind speeds, and it stayed true. Only problem was when the wind would die at the shooter myself, sometimes downrange I wouldn't see much wind, and I would make a correction and I would go a little short on the wind call for myself, which was the wrong thing to do. I should have just stuck to my tables. At this range, I've always stuck to my wind tables, and it's been true to me, and I've shot really well that way. But because I was shortchanging myself on my windage, I did drop some shots in the first area. I think I dropped like 4 shots total, which is maybe 4 or 5 shots, but it's not terrible. So this is the plate that I dropped all my points on in the first 3 stages. I didn't trust my wind tables. I felt like the wind was dying a little bit. I was watching some smoke come up from people impacting rocks. I just didn't think it was moving that much, so I dropped 3 of 4 shots. Here we have a new shooter. He asked to be coached earlier in the stages. I'm just giving him some advice to kind of widen his base, widen his legs out, just get in behind the gun. This stage we had to load 4 rounds individually, and then you could put a magazine and finish the course of fire. I kept telling people in my group to put 2 rounds in your mouth, or put your rounds in your mouth, bullet side inward, and just feed and speed through the stage. I got a 2-round carrier on the side of my chassis, so I put 2 rounds in my mouth, and I fed 2 from the speed loader and 2 from my mouth. Everyone was putting them in their pockets. They're picking their head up. They're not watching anything. They just keep moving. Unfortunately, we don't have footage of me shooting it. But anyway, I'm just talking about how I put rounds in my mouth. I stayed behind the gun the entire time. I never picked my head up. And I was able to speed feed 4 rounds so quickly that, I had 50 seconds left on the clock after my course of fire. You gotta game things in PRS. You gotta do what is going to make you most efficient with the least amount of movement. So that's what I did. This is a tank trap stage. I think it's 3 or 4 shots from each position. 3 shots from each position. Hit to move. So you have to hit the steel target. You can see how much wind is there, and that's only at 300 something yards. I think the targets were between like 276 and 320. I think I held for the first 2 stages, and I dialed for the last one because I think the last shot is a little bit longer. But you can see center impact. The plate's not wobbling side to side, so the wind is not moving it too much. I held left of center, just because I knew there was still wind. Plate size was pretty big. It's a 1/3 IPSC, center impact. So super clean run, super easy. This run got people. The wind was strong enough that people were holding on center, and they were blowing off the edge. But I'm running 130 grain Berger federal gold medal match. It's running 29.78 in that climate out of my gun, and a 130 grain bullet, so that thing's moving. Wind does not affect my round as much as other people. This is one of the last stages, actually. This is the last set of stages of the match. So this angle that the camera has is actually between 2 trees. We had to shoot between 2 trees to get to access to target number 4. There's a rooftop stage. I learned from the match before how I wanted to shoot the rooftop. This was actually a pretty easy course of fire. I believe I cleaned it, but I cleaned this one. Targets weren't that far. I think they were between 280 something yards out to 500. It was 3 shots each target, 4 targets total, or 2 shots. It was actually 2 shots each target, 4 targets total. You know, there's still wind there, but you can see it kind of blew, the dust from the lead blew straight up. This area was not affected by wind as much as the other 2 areas that we shot from. So there was, you know, 3 or 4 stages per area, per section that we were in. We were kind of like in a little culvert here, little valley where the wind wasn't cutting across as much. We had a tree buffer. So I held left of center, you know, which would equate to maybe 1/10, maybe 2/10 on the bigger targets, just to have that extra room for error. But yeah, pretty easy course of fire. This one, I had like a 50 seconds left on the clock to hit O. I did hit, you can see I am hitting it right side favoring. So the wind was a little bit stronger there. This was the last stage of the day. This stage sucked. You had to shoot freestyle up top, 77 yards, got it, no problem. You know, rested my elbow against my stomach. I made a rookie fatal mistake on this one. This was 870 or so yards. It looks like it's easy. It's like, looks like a prone stage, but they added these sandbags, like, you know, flood sandbags. And man, it was, my magazine was resting on the flood sandbag, and my pint-sized Game Changer wax fill just was not enough height to get it up. And then when I was loading it, I was basically resting on the magazine, and it just was not stable. I could not support the gun correctly. I could not manage recoil correctly. I had that Coltac cuddle bag kind of under my stomach, belly area. I was trying to fill in some of the gaps. What I probably should have done is brought my backpack, because there was no gear restriction. So I really should have just brought my backpack with me, thrown it down there, laid on my backpack across everything, and you know, and then put my bag on top of the top of my backpack, and it would have created a nice ramped surface for my body to rest against. I would have had the clearance that I needed to get my magazine to clear. And I'm running MDT 12-round magazines, so they're a little bit longer than a standard 10-rounder. So this is where magazine length actually bit me in the ass. I did not have 3 points of contact. There was quite a bit of wind out there, so I was pressing shots where I thought I was going to get an impact. But, you know, I was left, right, low, high, just danced around the target. And then I ran out of time here, and I wanted to shoot at it anyway. And, you know, just for practice sake, I like to go through the whole motion if I have time. So dinged it. This was a great stage. It's actually a pretty long stage. I think we're shooting out to 700 and 800. No, I think we shot out to 800 or 900 yards here. Great stage. This was the PRS tiebreaker stage, so this was under time. Your time actually helps break point as a point breaker if I tied anyone else for points. So I like these stages. It's a PRS barricade. That's the name of the barricade. I brought a pint-sized Game Changer sandbag wax fill and my Coltac cuddle bag. This is my favorite preferred setup for these style barricades. I can grip the stock of the gun, putting my thumb and loading it, and kind of cradle the front lobe of the bag, you know, like a ball sack in your hands. Just really wrench it down tight. If you need to free recoil, you do have a lot of recoil management there. And dropped a few shots because long shots, lots of wind was changing, wind was dying. I think I had 8 mile an hour in my table for that. I stayed true to my tables and I shot okay. But the wind was picking up. You're having gusts. So I missed this target a couple times. I don't think I missed this target. I missed one of the longer targets just because it blew off the right edge, and then I got my impacts. See, I hit left side there, so I was holding left to center or left edge because of the wind. Because I was having those gusts earlier in the stage, I was being a little bit more cautious and giving it a little bit more extra mils for wind, but I was happy with that. I think I shot 80% on that stage, and I was pretty happy. Most of the guys in my squad didn't, was 50% or lower. So this was tire stage. I made another mistake here. I was pretty confident in my position building. This I didn't get too stable on, and I did not trust my wind tables on this one. This was actually the first stage that we shot in this area, first or second stage. But no, this would be the second stage we shot in this area. But I did not trust my wind tables for the first 2 stages in this area. I was shortchanging them a little bit because you can see, look downrange, you can't see any wind, but my misses here are going right off the right side of the plate. And I think I took an extra shot here as well. So I only got 1 impact on that plate. So again, trust your wind tables. If you put them in and you're confident that that wind is pretty averaging, is averaging what you put into there, and you know, from the snow, we knew what angle it was going at in relation to us, roughly. Trust your tables. Always trust your tables. Looks like we're jumping back to the final stage again. I have my tripod set up. This stage was hard. This was a shitty Manfrotto tripod with a Really Right Stuff Arca ball head on it. And I don't like the Really Right Stuff Arca ball heads, the style one. There's 3 different knobs to make your adjustments. Whereas the one that my glasses on, there's 1 master knob underneath that controls everything. And then you can do rotation on mine. So I decided to clip in a sling. It's a Coltac sling. It's clipped into a Coltac QD that's wrapped around my belt. So I'm trying to load it. Problem is, I'm not shooting how I normally shoot off a tripod. I'd normally reverse my hand outward, palm to the 9 o'clock, and hold one of the legs to add stability to the tripod. Unfortunately, because I wasn't clipped into this tripod, and we had to, you could have clipped your gun into it, but the amount of time that I would have lost clipping into it, sucked. Now, hindsight's 2020, maybe I should have clipped into it and took the time and got a couple impacts. I think I ended up getting 1 hit here. My sling was working against me. My bag was steady, but the tripod was super shaky. So pretty much when I'm pressing my shots here, I'm just lobbing them where my crosshair crosses the threshold of where I want to hold for wind, and I'm just praying for an impact at that point. The wind was changing. It was gusting and dying, gusting and dying. So all my misses here were kind of dancing around. And this is a long stage. I think we were shooting 775 yards, and then we transitioned. You're not going to see it because camera was on the wrong stage, but I got an impact out here at 995 yards. But again, 995 yards on a stage that long on a shitty, rickety, crappy tripod standing. I mean, shit, it's tough. So this was a rock stage, unlimited gear. I'm running the pint-sized Game Changer and a cuddle bag. If memory serves me, I think this was a no dial stage. You could not dial wind, or you could not dial you couldn't touch any of your dials. So I got my impacts on the first rock, and as I'm shooting, see, this is all holds. This stage is an all hold stage. So as I'm shooting, I didn't trust my wind tables again. I got my first impact, missed these ones. I couldn't see my misses. They were going off the right edge, but I started walking it back in because I didn't trust my wind tables, so I started going wider off the plate, and then I was like, fuck, I gotta go left way more, and then I cleaned it up in the end. I'm not the biggest fan of like no dial stages. The graduation marks on my scope are they change every other even odds, and I'm decent at shooting them, but man, when you have a splashback that is sucking up rounds and you're not seeing misses, it's very hard to figure out what you're doing wrong.